This is Curt Frantz reporting for Infowars at Infowars.com and Prison Planet at PrisonPlanet.com. Why is it the case, as President Trump implements his MAGA agenda and America regains her greatness, why is it the case that leftists become ever more hateful, crazy, and violent? To understand that, you have to look at the left as three tiers. At the topmost tier are the ruling elites, those who want a one world government, new world order, with them at the top. You can't get there with America being rich and prosperous and free and great. You need to sort of level the playing field across the world in order to take over it. So you need to make America indebted, poor, have a lot of angst running around, people not happy living here, poor, and want something to take care of them, a one world government. So America's greatness is the enemy of the ruling elite. It ruins their goal, and Trump is ruining their goal. In addition to that, Trump is also exposing them for the corrupt individuals that they are, which is a direct threat on them, in addition to the threat on their goal. So they're becoming ever more desperate as Trump becomes more successful, as America becomes greater. They become more desperate to roll that back the way it was. And they try to get that across by sending out the message that Trump is terrible and what he's doing is terrible. They use their propaganda arm, formerly known as the mainstream media, in the news and entertainment and social areas to convey this message. And they were getting, as they get more desperate, they want that message conveyed ever more strongly. That Trump's getting even more terrible. He's doing even more terrible things. Now, at that second tier, that's the top tier is the ruling. The second tier are those who work in the propaganda arm, whether they're in major networks or major newspapers or entertainment, movies, music, art, social media. Those people are in there in part because they're weak characters, they're easier to manipulate and direct, but also because they have the same bias against this country as the ruling elites. Now, it's probably the case that largely they're ignorant of what their bosses are wanting them to do. They direct them. They embrace what they're being told to do. That's why they were hired, because they are leaning that way, to be toadies, to be shills for what it is that the ruling elites want them to do. So they go ahead and push that message, adding to it, through fake news or whatever they want to do, to make it stronger, do what their masters compel them to do, what they want to do. Now, at the third tier, the lowest level tier, this is the sheeple. These are the people, the masses, who embrace what those in the second tier, the propaganda arm, put out. These are people who will question, things that are obviously fake news. They don't want to question that. They want to accept it because it is aligned with their version of reality. So these are people who also were biased in the same way against America and against Donald Trump. So as they get fed stronger messages, they will respond even more strongly. They've made commitments, personal commitments, that Trump would be a terrible president. They've shown that to be wrong. They won't admit that, so they got to double down on that. And they've got a commitment to their group. It's a sort of a group think or group feeling that we're in this together, and to sort of acknowledge that Trump is being successful, that American greatness is being restored, they will become ostracized by the group. So they neither want to admit they're wrong or will be able to stand on their own. They're not capable of that. These are people who are weak in character and don't have that kind of strength or courage. So they've got a personal commitment to get stronger in their hatred, violence, craziness. If you ever seen like a child who is afraid or angry or gets hurt, they run to mom and sort of bury themselves in there, like looking for support, looking for condolences, looking for acceptance, that things are okay. What these sheeple at this low level and at the second tier will do the same kind of thing. But their mom is the group. That's what they, if you don't think much of yourself, this is why they are where they're at. You find some support in the group, being part of something bigger than you. So under duress, you embed yourself further, just like the baby or a child will enmesh themselves more closely with mom. These people will push themselves more deeply into the group. And the group is one that is the anti-Trump. So to go in deeper, you have to go in harder. You have to become more angry, more violent, more hateful. That's how you show that you're even more part of the group. Now, why is it that this works on some people, not everybody? I mean, we all see the same propaganda arm of the ruling elites. We all go to the same kinds of schools. It's not there that these people are learning to be as they are, to be the sheeple. It's what they learn early on about themselves, their lack of acceptance of themselves, their low sense of self. That starts before school, before propaganda on. That starts early in childhood. And we do things, and government has set up programs to force unnatural family conditions. We go against our physiology, and when you sort of taking out of what nature had intended, you are isolated and you're not comfortable in your own skin and you don't like yourself and you become wretched inside and you look to glob onto these others who are similarly wounded souls. So that's the base level and the middle level and the top level. They're just operating at different tiers, but they have the same motivations. So it's not only that they hate Trump, but that they hate America because they hate themselves, their inner life, which they would never admit to because that would be exposing it. And let me give an analogy that might be helpful to understand. Think of a sports team, and a person who's fanatic about their team in that sport. They love this team. You know a lot of people like this. Maybe you're like that. And there's always in any sport, there's some individual who is a great performer, a great player in that sport, but he's kind of a guy that, I just hate that guy. Maybe he's too good, or he looks too good, or it makes come too easy. Or he's a guy that disrupts the team, or maybe he's had some domestic abuse, or he talks smack, or whatever the heck it is. There's reasons that guys are seen on other teams as somebody you hate on another team, and that's okay. But what happens in those cases, and this does happen, when that player comes to your team? They change teams. Free agency, drafted, or if it's a college player, you draft them or trade for them. And now, well, fans will tend to do one of two things. All of a sudden, they'll forget all of that other stuff and love this guy because he's a great player. Or they'll still say, I don't like that guy. But they'll still cheer him when he hits the game-winning homer or scores a game-winning touchdown or hits the game-winning basket. Yay, they're up and cheering. I don't like the guy, but I really like what he's doing with the team, for the team, and we're better because of it, unless the team gets worse. But generally speaking, if the team's getting better, having more success, may or may not like the guy, but they do like that the team's having more success. Now think about that in terms of this country. This country is having more success economically in terms of people who are working, people are making more money, and on the world stage, seems like things are going to turn around for this country's favor. Trade deals are no longer going to be one-sided against us. There's going to be peace in places where they didn't think it was possible. Yet these people still aren't going to root for the team, the U.S., because they hate the team. They never did like the team. They have to say they do. But when they're against the national identity, when they're against having a strong military, when they're against economic boom, when they're against all of these things, law and order, they're not for the country. They hate the country. So as the country gets better, they don't want to acknowledge their wrongness. They don't want to acknowledge that they don't want to be part of the group that they've identified themselves with. They don't want success for things that they don't like. This is why they become ever more desperate, ever more angry, ever more crazy, ever more violent, ever more hateful. It's not an easy problem to fix, but if you can knock off the top level, that turns the globalist propaganda arm into something more accurate, more truthful, more real. And then the sheeple at the lower level, they come disoriented and lost, and over time they just sort of drift into not having that level of violence because there's no one to connect with, or fewer people to connect with. They're not getting marching orders. So there's why they are as they are and how you can heal that. It's not an easy task, but that's what lies before us. This is Curt Frantz for Infowars at Infowars.com and Prison Planet at PrisonPlanet.com.